India Legal makes the difference because we bring you only the news that counts.
India Legal, stories that count.
Hello and welcome to another special readout from India Legal magazine. As you know, we are the nation's first political legal independent weekly focusing on controversial issues of national and international importance. The video readouts we present to you regularly are the editorial team's choice of the most significant stories we believe should receive close scrutiny and wide circulation. You can watch them along with the visuals or listen to them as you would a podcast. In this week's readout, we focus on the subject of whistleblowing. In its most generous and positive interpretation, the term refers to men and women of conscience who publicly exposed waste, fraud and corruption in governments as well as the corporate world. They also bring to light human rights violations, usually at tremendous risk to themselves, mental and physical. Whistleblowing is perhaps derived from England, where bobbies, as policemen are called in slang, blow their whistles to alert the public when they are chasing crooks. But there are those, especially people in governments and people in high positions, who describe whistleblowers as spies and thieves or disgruntled employees who cloak themselves with the mantle of morality associated with whistleblowing. In the news once again is the world's most celebrated or notorious, whichever way you look at him, fugitive whistleblower Edward Snowden. This 39-year-old American, a former employee of America's super secret National Security Agency, which, you know, in common parlance is another spy agency like the CIA, but which has a different role to play. It collects a lot of data and intelligence from other countries. Well, this former employee, Snowden, who once belonged to the NSA, has just been granted Russian citizenship by Supremo Vladimir Putin. Snowden fled to Russia to evade federal prosecution after leaking classified documents to journalists. He was granted asylum in Russia in 2013 and later permanent residency. He has remained in Russia ever since. Now, you can read about Snowden if you want on any international media platform. He's a superstar or supervillain, depending on which way you look at him. Our focus this week is on an Indian whistleblower in the news. His name is A Shankar. Now, he is hardly a household word, and he is not the first whistleblower that India has had yet. This YouTuber and blogger posts regular articles on alleged corruption of politicians, government employees, journalists and judges. But he does not enjoy impunity. A court has now sentenced him to a prison term for his claims that, and I quote him, "the entire higher judiciary is plagued by corruption," unquote. I'm not saying this. This is a quote from him. Now, today's readout is from a piece written by our associate A Shankar from the India Legal Bureau. According to our bureau report, A Shankar is a self-styled whistleblower. He started a website called Savukku Net, which means a whip, koda, a whip, publishing regular articles on alleged corruption of politicians, government employees, again, journalists and judges. I repeat this to give you an idea of the kind of parameters that this man has been dealing with. Now, his detractors claim that many of these were without proof or without any evidence. Now, the Madras High Court has taken a tough stand and sentenced him to 6 months jail term, finding him guilty of criminal contempt. The court had initiated suo motu proceedings, meaning on its own, against Shankar following a remark made to a YouTube channel, Red Pics, on July 22, whereby he had claimed that the entire higher judiciary is plagued by corruption. The court thundered. I quote the court. He cannot tar the entire institution with a single brush. That would be crossing the Lakshman Rekha, the red line, the no cross line, by a long shot. It is not as if the said remark accidentally tumbled out of his mouth. These were the words of Justices G.R. Swaminathan and B. Pugalendi. The court refused Shankar's request for a suspended sentence till an appeal is filed in the Supreme Court. The judges found that Shankar's statements were scandalous and they denigrate and deride the institution of the judiciary. The bench noted that Shankar did not show any regret or even tender an apology, and ordered that he be immediately taken into custody and be lodged at Madurai Central Prison. The judges said the contemner, the person making these accusations, has reiterated his resolve to continue his attack on the judiciary. He has gone to the extent of stating that he cannot be sentenced only to a maximum of 6 months. That is, he can be sentenced only to a maximum of 6 months. I repeat that on purpose. And that after coming out, he will focus all his attention on the judges and the judiciary. Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer stated, the famous Krishna Iyer, I don't have to remind our audience who he was, one of the most famous judges of the Supreme Court, that, to quote Krishna Iyer, justice fails when judges quail. And now these are the two High Court judges who sentenced him to jail. They are quoting Krishna Iyer, and to continue with their quote, they say, "We do not propose to quail. There are occasions when judges have to be firm and stern, shrugging off such provocations by stating that we possess broad shoulders and would be seen as signs of weakness. The contemner has shown himself to be an unrepentant character," the bench held. Shankar was a former employee of the Directorate of Vigilance and Anti-Corruption, DVAC, and was suspended for allegedly releasing an audio tape of a DMK minister who later resigned as a consequence. Shankar was arrested in 2008 in connection to the leak, but was soon released on bail, having been acquitted of all charges in 2017. As a political commentator, he often publishes details of backroom deals, insinuating wrongdoing without any substantial backing or evidence very often. In 2014, the Madras High Court had called for a ban on his site, observing that the vituperative site, this is their quote, vituperative site, had damaged the reputation of many judges, advocates, and IAS and IPS officers. However, Justice K. Chandru, a former judge of the Madras High Court, in an opinion piece in Junior Vinkatan, a bi-weekly Tamil political magazine, has opined, and now this is a former judge speaking, this is not me, and he's got totally different views. I quote him: "The courts can enhance the pride of the judiciary only by pardoning people and not punishing them. Invoking powers vested with them just because some people talk ill about the judiciary is akin to killing a mosquito using a pounder. There is still time. It will be best if the judges come forward voluntarily to withdraw the sentencing awarded to Shankar and releasing him from jail." It is in these circumstances that Savukku Shankar has been punished for his comments made in a YouTube interview by Justices G.R. Swaminathan and N. Pugalendi. Shankar has the opportunity to appeal against this order in the Supreme Court under Section 19. It is shocking that the judges did not invoke the powers vested with them to suspend the sentencing till he, Shankar, goes for an appeal. Else it is just like how police arrest a person over the weekend deliberately to keep him behind bars for 2 days. There is not much difference between the two, quote unquote. This is the quote from the former judge. Now, contempt of court is governed by the Contempt of Courts Act of 1971. Contempt of court is majorly of two types: civil and criminal. Civil contempt means willful disobedience to any judgment, decree, direction, order, writ, or other process of a court, or willful breach of an undertaking given to a court, whereas criminal contempt means the publication, whether by words spoken or written, or by signs or by visible representation, or otherwise of any matter of the doing of any other act whatsoever which scandalizes or tends to scandalize or lowers or tends to lower the authority of any court. 2. Prejudices or interferes or tends to interfere with the due course of any judicial proceeding, or interferes or tends to interfere with or obstructs or tends to obstruct the administration of justice in any other manner. Whistleblowing is all very well, but only valid if it is backed by solid evidence. Now, the courts are literally using the whip to ensure that the entire judiciary is not tarred by the same brush. A whistleblower cannot afford to be vulnerable to the same charges that he levels against those he is claiming to expose. This is your host editor, Inderjit Badhwar. Until next time, goodbye for now.
India Legal, stories that count.